The top stories tonight in Y News. The Commission on Elections proclaimed all 12 winning senators in the 2022 elections, including newcomers and veteran lawmakers. Presumptive President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. talked of expanding bilateral ties and regional development with Chinese President Xi Jinping. The Department of Agriculture warned of a looming global food crisis that will certainly hit the country if interventions are not made. And Pagaso declared the start of the rainy season in the Philippines. Good evening, Philippines and the world. Today is Wednesday, May 18, 2022. Join us in the next hour as we deliver today's top stories around the Philippines and in other parts of the world. I am William Theo. We are also seen in 1,935 satellite monitoring centers nationwide and via live streaming worldwide through the UNTV News and Rescue social media accounts. First in the news, presumptive President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. has expressed optimism that the relations between the Philippines and China will be enhanced under his administration. Nel Maribuhok will tell us why.
Chinese President Xi Jinping called former Senator Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. on the phone this morning to congratulate him on his apparent victory in the presidential elections. According to Chinese Ambassador to the Philippines Wang Xilian, Xi called on both countries to carry forward the friendship and stay true to their original aspiration. In a statement, Marcos Jr. confirmed that he had a preliminary discussion with the Chinese president on how the China-Philippines bilateral relations could move forward. The presumptive president expressed the talks as very substantial. The two leaders also discussed on how to expand the relationship of China and the Philippines, not only in diplomatic relations and trade, but also in culture, education, and health. Aside from assuring that China supports Marcos' stance on having an independent foreign policy, the Chinese president also acknowledged the role of the late President Ferdinand Marcos in opening of diplomatic relations between the two countries. Nel Maribuhok, UNTV News and Rescue, we serve the people, we give glory to God.
Overseas, Filipino workers advocate Susan Tuts Ople is contemplating the offer of presumptive President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. for her to lead the Department of Migrant Workers. In a statement, Ople said she is now in a process of discernment and consultation to whether she will accept the offer or not. The former Labor Undersecretary added she is aware of the enormity of the tasks and challenges involved. On the other hand, Ople said she was humbled and gratified with the offer. Meanwhile, some martial law survivors call on the Supreme Court to disqualify Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. from the 2022 national elections. With this, a petition was filed to order for the higher court to reverse the decision of the Commission on Elections, or COMELEC. Asher Kadapan Jr. will give us the details live. Yes, Asher, good evening. Go ahead.
Good evening, Will. The campaign against the return of the Marcoses and martial law, or KARMA, as well as some martial law survivors, hope that their petition will be heard legally and be given proper decision by the Supreme Court. This was after the Commission on Elections dismissed their petition to disqualify presumptive President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. in the 2022 elections. Attorney Howard Calleja, the legal counsel of the petitioners, explains that the law dictates that any convicted person is not qualified in holding a government position, as with Marcos Jr.'s case.
Malinaw po na siya po ay may 4 na conviction. Malinaw po na hindi pa niya binabayaran ang penalty doon sa kanyang pagka-convict. Malinaw po na yung conviction na yon under the tax code carries with it perpetual disqualification. At malinaw po na hanggang ngayon, since hindi po siya nagbabayad, siya po ay convict. At hindi po pwede ang kahit na kung sinong convict na manumpa at magsilbi sa ating gobyernong Pilipinas.
With this, the martial law survivors filed to the Supreme Court the petition for certiorari to review the decision made by COMELEC today. The petitioners also asked the highest court to issue a temporary restraining order to stop the canvassing of ballots and proclamation of Bongbong Marcos as the 17th President of the Philippines.
Sabi nga nila, medyo mahirap dahil we have 14 justices right now kasi nag-retire po yung isa at 12 out of 14 galing kay President Duterte, dalawa po galing kay President Noynoy Aquino. But nonetheless, we are not basing this on who the justices are or who appointed them, but we are basing them on the integrity of the justices, on the independence of the Supreme Court, and the strength of our argument.
Well, the martial law survivors emphasize that their petition is not about who should be proclaimed as the next president, but rather the qualification and disqualification of Bongbong Marcos in the presidential race for the 2022 elections. Will?
Yes, thank you. Asher Kadapan Jr. reporting live from Quezon City. The Philippine National Police is ready to deploy more cops in Lanao del Sur should the Commission on Elections issue the order to ensure the security of the special elections to be held on May 24. Leah Ilagan reports.
Around 800 police personnel have been deployed into Baran, Lanao del Norte, where special elections will be held in 12 barangays on May 24. PNP spokesperson Police Colonel Jean Fajardo said they are prepared to secure the special elections in the province.
If the COMELEC would require us to add more troops on the ground, then the PNP and the AFP is ready to respond.
Aside from the deployment of its personnel, the PNP is also coordinating with contending parties for the peaceful conduct of elections. Colonel Fajardo ensures that they have not received any threat as of this moment.
Sa ngayon, wala pa tayong nare-receive na any serious threat, particularly dyan sa probinsya ng Lanao. At patuloy pa rin naman yung ginagawang intelligence build-up and monitoring at gathering ng pinagsanib na pwersa ng PNP at AFP para nga masiguro na yung ating mga kababayan doon come May 24 ay makakalabas at maikakash yung vote nila nang walang pinangangambahan sa kanilang safety and security.
COMELEC last week declared a failure of elections in at least 14 barangays in Lanao del Norte due to various incidents like armed men stealing vote counting machines and ballots. Leah Ilagan, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
Meanwhile, Commission on Elections Chairman Saidamin Pangarungan took pride of the achievements of the poll body during the conduct of the 2022 national and local elections. Aiko Miguel explains why.
COMELEC Chairman Saidamin Pangarungan in his welcome address thanked the people behind the conduct of a safe, honest, and clean elections. Aside from the highest voter turnout with 83.11%, the 2022 elections has been the swiftest in transmitting election results. This despite the recorded 915 vote counting machines that had technical issues and errors delaying elections in some areas.
COMELEC transparency server at the University of Santo Tomas that received all election results in record time immediately after voting on election day. The swiftest transmission in election history was witnessed by the watchful eyes of all representatives of political parties, the PPCRB, NAMFREL, and other citizens' arms.
He also emphasized how peaceful the election was, with only a few election-related violence.
This is an election with the lowest election-related violence of only 16 incidents, compared to 160 violent incidents in the 2019 elections.
Chairman Pangarungan also expressed his appreciation to all the men and women of COMELEC, the Department of Education, all the teachers and support staff for ensuring that the voting process was safe and the counting was accurate. He thanked all the security forces in the country for securing the peaceful elections and guarding the safety of everyone. The COMELEC chairman wished the success of the newly elected members of the Senate in leading our nation to its fullest potential. The 12 proclaimed senators will serve for 6 years and their term will end on June 30, 2028. Aiko Miguel, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The Department of Agriculture warned that the looming global food crisis will definitely hit the country if appropriate actions and planning are not done by the next administration. Janice Inhente explains why.
The Department of Agriculture urges the public to do urban farming methods and help increase the food production in the country in the coming months. This as the department projects that the brewing global food crisis may hit also the country. Agriculture Secretary William Dar said one indication is the big increase in the prices of farm inputs in the country.
Ang titignan natin ay itong second semester of the year. Starting, nakikita na ninyo yung pagtaas ng presyo ng mga inputs. So, kukunti ang mabili sa global market. And so, advance dapat ang planning din.
The food crisis is driven by the adverse economic impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic, the war between Russia and Ukraine, and the continuous upsurge of oil prices. Dar meanwhile clarified that so far the country has enough supply of rice, vegetables, and fish. However, he emphasized the need to sustain and increase the food production.
Dapat paghandaan at ang bawat Pilipino ay kung pwede magtanim tayong lahat, mag-alaga at mangisda, kagaya dito sa urban areas. Kung may paraan na dadagdagan natin yung mga production ng ating mga magsasaka at mga mangingisda, ay we have also to do it tayo na mamamayan.
The Agriculture Secretary reiterated the next administrations need to adopt and strengthen the National Agriculture and Fisheries Modernization and Industrialization Plan, mentioning it may materialize the potential of the Philippines to be a mega industry for agriculture. Janice Inhente, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
After the release of wage increase orders in the National Capital Region and Western Visayas, the Department of Labor and Employment announced that it will be effective on June 3. Eileen Cerudo will tell us why.
The wage orders in NCR and Western Visayas have been affirmed by the National Wages and Productivity Commission. With this, the new minimum wage in the two regions will take effect on June 3, the Department of Labor and Employment confirms. For NCR, minimum wage will increase to 570 pesos from the previous 537 pesos. In Western Visayas, the minimum wage increase will amount from 55 to 110 pesos.
Ang wage order ng Region 6, mga June 3 din po ay magiging effective yan. So we will check if the wage order in Region 6 will be published tomorrow. Kung magkasabay po siya ng NCR, then June 3 din po ay effective na ang bagong wage order sa mga region na yan.
Meanwhile, the wage boards also approved the petitioned wage increase for minimum wage earners in Ilocos, Cagayan Valley, and Caraga regions. In Ilocos region, from the previous 282 pesos to 340 pesos wages, it will increase from 372 to 400 pesos per day. Minimum wage earners in Cagayan Valley will also experience a wage increase from 400 to 420 pesos. In Caraga region, minimum wage workers will receive 45 pesos additional wages. Dole hopes these wage orders will become effective as soon as possible.
Pag nagpulong po muli within the week ang NWPC, malamang po i-approve natin. Unless merong procedural issues na makita ang board, yun lamang ang pwedeng galawin or baguhin ng komisyon.
Meanwhile, Dole says deliberations continue for the wage increase in Region 5, while the Wage Board in Region 12 already released a draft for the new wage order. The Labor Department expects the copy to be released in the coming weeks. Aileen Cerudo, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
Now it's time to bring out your rain gear as Pag-asa officially declares the start of the rainy season in the country. JP Nunez reports.
Intermittent rains associated with the southwest monsoon or habagat will begin affecting Metro Manila and western sections of the country. This after Pag-asa declared the start of the monsoon season, citing the widespread rains during the last 5 days.
Formal na natin dinideklara ang pagsisimula ng panahon ng tag-ulan, partikular nga dito sa may kanlurang bahagi ng Luzon at Visayas. Ito po yung areas na kabilang sa tinatawag Type 1 climate. Dahil nga po na-satisfy na yung criteria natin ng mga pag-ulan sa mga estasyon na nasa Type 1 climate.
Pag-asa defines areas under Type 1 climate classification as those with two pronounced seasons, dry from November to April and wet during the rest of the year. Despite the rainy season, breaks in rainfall events, also known as monsoon breaks, which can last for several days or weeks, may still occur. The public is advised to monitor weather updates, especially those areas that are prone to flash floods and landslides. JP Nunez, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
And for the news abroad, the city of New York has been placed on high alert level after 2 months of continuous rise in COVID infections. Charis Longbowen will give us the details live. Yes, Charis, good evening.
Good evening, Marielle. On Tuesday, New York health officials moved its COVID-19 alert level from medium to high after recording the highest number of new infections this week, which could pressure the city's healthcare system. Health Commissioner Dr. Ashwin Basan released an advisory urging the community to protect each other by wearing high-quality masks in public places, both indoors and outdoors. NYC's daily average of total cases for the last 7 days is 3,674, 61 hospitalizations, and 4 confirmed deaths. Although these numbers will likely be higher due to delays according to the data from NYC Health. Dr. Vasan added that the city is capable of moving back to low alert level as long as the community does its part in preventing the spread of the virus. However, Mayor Eric Adams stated that the city is not planning on implementing mask mandates at the moment. This would be their 5th wave of the Omicron outbreak since January of this year. Back to you, Marielle.
Thank you, Charis Longbowen, for that live report. U.S. regulators approved COVID-19 booster shot for healthy children ages 5 to 11 years old to boost protection against new coronavirus variants. A third shot is also available to elementary kids at least 5 months after their last dose by the authorization of the Food and Drug Administration. However, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention must give their final recommendation on this, and CDC scientific advisors will meet on Thursday. It is believed that even though children ages 5 to 11 years old are less susceptible to coronavirus, 350 children have died due to COVID-19 in the United States, according to CDC. With new Omicron variants spreading in the U.S., health authorities agree that continuous vaccination offers strong protection against hospitalization and death. Peace talks between Ukraine and Russia have stalled while the International Criminal Court assigns more war crimes investigators. Nerissa Dantno will give us the details live. Yes, Nerissa, go ahead.
Good evening, Marielle. There has been little communication between Ukraine and Russia in the recent weeks. Now Russia accuses Ukraine of strengthening its position and also the West of supporting the Kiev administration. According to Ukraine's presidential advisor Mikhailo Podolyak, talks have been put on hold as Russia refused to admit that it would not achieve any aims and that the conflict would no longer follow Kremlin rules. On Russia's side, Deputy Foreign Minister Audrey Rodenko says that Ukraine has practically withdrawn from the negotiation process. Meanwhile, the International Criminal Court, or ICC, announced deployment of forensics and investigative team to record and analyze evidence of suspected Russian war crimes. This would verify evidence and improve gathering of witness testimony related to Russia's actions in Ukraine. In addition to that, the U.S. State Department spokesperson Ned Price announced that the launch of the Conflict Observatory Program to capture the evidence of war crimes in Ukraine allegedly perpetrated by Russia.
The program will capture, analyze, and make publicly available open source information and evidence of atrocities, human rights abuses, and harm to civilian infrastructure, including Ukraine's cultural heritage.
Back to you, Marielle.
Thank you, Nerissa Dando, for that live report. New Zealand is planning to spend over $350 million for a clean car project aimed to assist lower-income families. Paul Gatchalian will tell us the details live. Yes, Paul, go ahead.
Marielle, New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern announced the $1 million project in an effort to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. The project aims to fund lower-income families with hybrid or electric cars to replace their old gas-fueled vehicles. As part of a larger business plan, the trial program aims to spend 569 million New Zealand dollars, equivalent to 357 million US dollars, which will further include subsidies for business. Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern states that the project is directly related to the rising sea levels recently raised for the country, in hopes of addressing climate change before it's too late. Along with e-bikes and cars, the government identified public transport as one of the biggest industries heavily reliant on fossil fuel use. Buses in particular will be converted to be fully zero emission. Agriculture, deforestation, and dairy production are also key aspects in this project. The government plans to complete and finalize the project strategies over the next months. A completely clean vehicle fleet is expected by 2035 and a zero-carbon emissions nation aimed by 2050. Back to you, Marielle.
Thank you, Paul Gatchalian, reporting live from New Zealand. A new study has found that 9 million deaths in a year globally are attributed to all types of pollution. Mavian Dog will give us the details live. Yes, Maeve, good evening.
Good evening, Marielle. The death toll caused by pollution from cars, trucks, and industry has increased by 55% since 2000, based on a new study in the journal The Lancet Planetary Health. According to Philip Landrigan, director of the Global Public Health Program and Global Pollution Observatory at Boston College, the number of deaths is not decreasing, while ambient air pollution and chemical pollution continue to go up. Chad and the Central African Republic ranked the highest, with around 300 pollution deaths per 100,000 people, while Brunei, Qatar, and Iceland have the lowest rates, ranging from 15 to 23. The global average is 717 pollution deaths per 100,000 people. The study states that pollution kills the same number of people every year as cigarette smoking and secondhand smoke combined. According to Dr. Renee Salas, an emergency room doctor and Harvard professor, the American Heart Association determined that exposure to pollution particles is causal for heart disease and death. In South Asia, air pollution remains the leading cause of death, and the increasing numbers further confirm the increasing toxic emissions from vehicles and energy generation. President of the Health Effects Institute, Dan Greenbaum, said this is the case in areas of the world where population is dense and where there is limited financial and government resources to address pollution problems. Marielle?
Thank you, Mavian Dog, reporting live. And those are the reasons behind the news in other parts of the globe. I am Mariela Toza reporting live from Perth, Australia. Good evening.
The country will be seeing both new and familiar faces in the halls of the Senate in the next Congress as the winning senators for the 2022 elections have been proclaimed. An incumbent lawmaker hopes that a real minority group will be established to ensure checks and balances in the upper chamber. Harleen Delgado will tell us why.
The 19th Congress of the Senate of the Philippines will be having a new composition with the entry of newly proclaimed senators. Most of them are political allies of presumptive President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos. 3 of them are neophytes, 5 are making a comeback, while 4 are re-electionists. For incumbent Senator Aquilino Coco Pimentel, the Senate should have a real minority group to check on the greater majority. Pimentel is inclined to join the Senate's minority bloc, while re-electionist Senator Risa Hontiveros is the lone opposition senator who made it to the Magic 12.
Structurally, we will make sure na hindi rubber stamp. So structurally, we must have a real minority group in the Senate to check on the majority kasi ano na yan tyranny of numbers yan to make sure that there will be no tyranny of numbers.
The senator also emphasized being in the minority doesn't mean opposing, but improving legislation.
Pag sinabi kong check, it doesn't mean naman it doesn't mean that we will always be on the opposite side. Check lang namin, number 1, are we following the Senate rules? Number 2, we will look at the constitutionality of the proposal. Then number 3, we will look at the wisdom. Is the Senate's time better spent on this, or are there other more important problems of the country na yun na lang ang pagbuhusan natin ng oras at debate?
Pimentel says they would wait for the final composition of the majority bloc before they organize the minority group and later on voting for the minority leader. This as Pimentel disapproved of an alleged arrangement that returning Senator Congressman Alan Peter Cayetano may be named as the next minority leader as a result of a supposed majority caucus. For now, both houses of Congress are on session break and will convene in a joint session as the National Board of Canvassers for the canvassing of votes for presidential and vice presidential elections. Harleen Delgado, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
The Commission on Elections, or COMELEC, formally proclaims the 12 senatorial candidates who received the highest number of votes in the recently concluded national elections. Meanwhile, the newly proclaimed senators shared their priorities during their term. Dante Amento is on the line to give us the details live. Yes, Dante, good evening. Go ahead.
Good evening, William. 3 neophytes, 5 former legislators, 4 re-electionist lawmakers comprised the 12 newly elected senators. Actor Robin Padilla, a vocal supporter of President Rodrigo Duterte, topped the 2022 senatorial race after garnering 26.6 million votes. Being a neophyte, Padilla calls his colleagues to make necessary amendment of the Constitution.
Hinihingi na po ito. Narinig ko po ang napakadaming patungkol sa sweldo, patungkol sa trabaho, patungkol sa edukasyon. Lahat po yan nakasalalay kung atin pong haharapin ang pagreforma sa saligang batas.
Also, a first-time lawmaker is broadcaster Rafi Tulfo, who garnered 23,396,954 votes. House Deputy Speaker Representative Lauren Ligarda ranked second with 24.2 million votes. She ran under Nationalist People's Coalition. The newly elected senators are facing some serious problems in the country, including the COVID-19 pandemic. Senators Lauren Ligarda and Risa Hontiveros assured to continue to look for efforts in order to mitigate the current health crisis and subsequently the country would recover from it.
Tuloy rin ang ating kampanya para sa healthy buhay at hanap buhay at sa pagpasa ng mga mahalagang batas para sa mamamayan. I look forward to working with everyone.
Ligarda adds she has also to prioritize the problem regarding climate change. Senator Joel Villanueva stresses he will focus on the high unemployment rate in the country.
5.8% pa rin ang ating unemployment rate. Halos 3 milyon pa rin ang walang trabaho. At kaya ito ang ating tututukan at alam natin mabigat ang hamon ng ating pamahalaan sa darating na mga panahon.
Meanwhile, Senator Alan Peter Cayetano calls for strong and free Senate leadership. As a comebacking senator, Chis Escudero has thanked the COMELEC for the alleged historic, fast and fair elections in the country. He also calls for unity among the political parties or candidates in order to serve the public.
Walang katumbas at hindi pwedeng ikaila na isa na ito sa pinaka mabilis na halalang nakita natin na nagbigay daan para mabawasan din anumang pandaraya at anumang kaguluhan na pwedeng maganap o mangyari kaugnay ng isang halalan.
Senators Jingo Estrada, J.B. Ejercito, and Mark Villar expressed gratitude to the Filipinos who trusted them. They will work and fulfill their promises during the campaign. Rafi Tulfo, as a former broadcast journalist, will continue the program started to protect the poor and the aggrieved members of the society. Mig Zubiri disclosed that he is ready to lead the Senate. This after an issue surfaced that he is among the possible bet for Senate President. But Zubiri clarifies it is still upon the decision of the majority to whom they are going to choose.
The right of every senator to be able to speak their mind, to be able to air their voice and their vote on particular issues without having to stop their advocacies. It is too early, I think, right now to talk about the leadership issue. It's proclamation time. After proclamation, magsasama-sama muli kami.
Meanwhile, William Robin Padilla, who is on top of the race, he also thanked the Filipinos for allegedly giving him the opportunity to sit as representatives of Muslims in the Senate. And that's our latest live from PICC. Back to you, William.
Thank you, Dante Amento, reporting live from PICC. Our Kasangbahay, as the world faces these trying times amid the pandemic caused by coronavirus, we are inviting everyone to join the global prayer for humanity from Monday to Friday, 9:30 p.m. Philippine time through the social media accounts of Members Church of God International. And before we close, we will leave you with a word giving glory to God from the book of 1 John chapter 5 verse 3. It says, "For this is the love of God, that we keep His commandments, and His commandments are not grievous." And those are the reasons behind the news May 18, 2022. Reasons we deliver to you as they unfold. And because we need to know, we will always ask why. I am William Theo. We serve the people. We give glory to God.